Okay. Cody, we're writing. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm sure more people are going to be here. People just stayed up late waiting to see the results of those squeaker elections last night. I'm Morton Blackwell, president of the Leadership Institute, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our November Wednesday Wake Up Club breakfast. We live in interesting times, and when we are in election periods, it's always appropriate to think about lessons that can be learned. And one of the lessons is something that I have taught for many years, which was well demonstrated last night. And that is that it is easier to take over a major party than it is to create a major party. And we saw that happen. And if you're interested in seeing more of the stuff that I have done, we've never announced this before, but a number of my writings and speeches are available on the Leadership Institute website. If you go to the Leadership Institute website and look for the drop-down menu resources, and then go down on that and get writings and speeches, you'll there see a number of things that I have written which you may not have heard before. I encourage you all to live tweet today's breakfast. The hashtag should be on the screen right now. In 2025, your Leadership Institute has already trained 18,840 conservatives at 1,290 individual training events. And since 1979, the Leadership Institute has trained more than 351,627 activists, students, and leaders. You have before you our schedule of events for the upcoming month. Please take a moment to review these schools and consider attending one or sending friends to one of our trainings. If you're watching online, and I know a number of people do, please visit our website at leadershipinstitute.org/training to see upcoming online and in-person events. To offer an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, we have Amaya Schilling. She's an entrepreneur and political enthusiast from a small town in southeast Wisconsin. This summer, she started her own baking business, which she hopes one day to turn into a cafe. In her free time, Amaya loves hanging out with her sisters, reading, singing musical soundtracks, and making good food. Amanda Schilling is currently the events intern at the Leadership Institute. Amaya, would you step up, please?
All right, let's pray. Our Father. Wait, which one? Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for a program report. Stephen Theriault is an accomplished communications and data strategist with over 2 decades of experience leading technical, marketing, and development initiatives across nonprofit and corporate sectors. Stephen began his career at the Leadership Institute in 2003, later directing record-breaking fundraising efforts before moving to Edelman Public Relations, where he managed the global rollout of the Edelman Connector database for clients such as Walmart and Nissan. At the American Petroleum Institute, Stephen led influencer outreach and digital communication strategy, advising on messaging to policymakers and industry stakeholders. Following a period coordinating volunteer logistics during the pandemic, he served as the Assistant Director of Customer Data at the Heritage Foundation before he turned to the Leadership Institute to lead our digital fundraising, website development, and the unification of our communications and creative teams. Stephen is now the Director of Communications at the Leadership Institute. Stephen?
Thank you, Morton. My job sounds impressive, but it still comes with notes because it turns out there are more moving parts than I can keep straight if I don't write them down. But thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. Thank you, Morton. There we go. Now I can hear myself. Thought it was just me. So, as Morton said, I started my career here at the Leadership Institute, and LI gave me my start, and I was given an opportunity to come back just 2 years ago. And in coming back, it has been an absolutely fantastic journey. I started back in the development department, really working with our donors on the digital front. We then expanded that kind of space and tried to unify the way in which we speak to all of our public audiences. So we brought together all the different pieces at the Leadership Institute that are reaching out to the outside world. So we combined a number of teams, not because we thought we could reduce headcount, but because we thought we could do the work better if we all worked together and more closely. So we took a number of different teams that are now all part of the communications team. Our external affairs team, which works with sponsorships. They also happen to have our best editors and writers, in my opinion. We brought them in with our graphic design team that makes all of our branding, all of the things that we put out there look like the Leadership Institute. And that's everything from our pins down to the papers you see before you. They really put all that together. Our studios team, who you see here standing in the room right now, who goes around and captures video, stills, and then produces that content into things that we can then serve to our donors, to our students, to the general public that's interested in becoming more involved. Our events team, who puts on 11 of these breakfasts along with numerous events for staff, a number that I should get my hand around, a number of donor events that they're also doing, and our marketing team, which is responsible for our website, our social media, and our email. So everything that you folks saw that brought you here, let you know when it was, they're responsible for that. In early 2025, we brought all of us together and really started to think about a holistic team that really represents LI and helps to share everything that we're doing with a larger audience so that any conservative anywhere in the world hears about training, they think about LI. And so we're trying to really bring that manfold. Our external affairs team, they have partnered with more than 20 groups so far this year, training more than 1,200 students at those events. These are events like SPN, Turning Point USA, really just making sure that we're representing the whole large tent and that our trainings are available to everyone there. Our graphic design team creates, on average, about 20 unique designs every single week. They're going through them, and it's different publications. We have a catalog, Morton mentioned it earlier, of hundreds of them that are available online. And we try to produce these in such a way that anytime someone picks one up, it's obvious that the Leadership Institute was the place that this came from. So in everyone's mind, we're the premier place to get trainings for conservatives. Our studios team, they've visited 3 continents this year, more than 220 unique events of those 1,200 that have happened so far this year. They've captured video, stills, and then produced that into various different content, everything from 15-minute mini-series that we're hoping to release soon. So it's 3 episodes of a 15-minute mini-series, down to thousands of posts that go on social media. Their work is greatly appreciated. And then, of course, our events team. Amaya was introduced earlier. She's our intern. Daniel and Taylor, who's also working, all put on these events. Again, 11 of these every year, along with countless donor events. And staff get-togethers where all of our teams that are both remote and here get to come together and work together, see each other as real people, and foster just, again, a better working environment where we can all work seamlessly together to make sure the Leadership Institute is a finely oiled machine. And then finally, last but not least, our marketing team that has so far put out 611 unique email campaigns. That's 4.6 million emails, of which you've received a few, everybody in this room. Hope you like them. Please let us know if we can do better. To 67 different unique audiences. So that's 67 different segments of those lists, so we can reach everybody about the things that they're interested in, so that we're never pitching the wrong thing to the right person. We want to send every one of our audience to the programs that they're going to find most useful, that are going to help them the most on their journey. We also manage all of the social media. So far this year, we've posted 2,316 unique posts on social media. That's resulted in more than 750,000 likes, interactions, comments, everything like that. So we're really doing absolutely everything we can in order to really put the Leadership Institute in everyone's mind as the premier place to come for political training. That's my update. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Morton.
Thank you, Stephen. You're doing a great job. We're happy to have you back here with us, which I think Leadership Institute truly is your home base. It's my pleasure now to introduce Diane Jimenez, who will introduce our featured speaker. Diane, or DJ as we call him, is a student at Florida State University, where he is pursuing a degree in interdisciplinary social sciences with a primary focus on political science and a secondary focus on public administration. At FSU, he serves as clerk of the Student Government Association Senate and as ambassador for the College of Social Sciences and Public Policy. Beyond campus leadership, DJ is the founder of I Vote Nation, Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to increasing youth civic engagement and voter participation. DJ is currently studying for the LSAT with plans to attend law school and pursue a career in the legal and political arenas. Outside of academia and activism, he enjoys reading, developing new projects, and spending time with friends and family. DJ also led one of the most successful Turning Point USA high school chapters in the nation, earning TPUSA's first ever Patriot Award. DJ is currently my intern at the office of the president. DJ, come up and introduce our speaker, please.
Thank you so much, Morton. Like Morton said, my name is Dayan Jimenez. I go by DJ north of Miami-Dade County because people cannot pronounce my name, but DJ is good enough. So today I have the honor of introducing Rob Bluey. He's the president and executive editor at the Daily Signal. Rob Bluey is not just an accomplished journalist, but also an innovative leader and a steadfast advocate for free speech and a free press. For more than 2 decades, he has been a driving force in shaping the modern media landscape, always with a commitment to journalistic integrity and, above all, the pursuit of truth. In 2014, Rob became the founding editor of the Daily Signal, a platform built to provide insightful, credible reporting and thoughtful commentary on the most important policy issues of our time. A decade later, in 2024, the Daily Signal became an independent media organization, and under Rob's leadership as president and executive editor, it continues to thrive. His vision has helped expand its reach and influence, earning the trust of policymakers, thought leaders, and millions of readers across the country. Today, the Daily Signal stands out for its hard-hitting investigative journalism, its exclusive coverage of Congress, and its timely commentary on culture and politics. Through written stories, podcasts, and video reports, it informs and inspires Americans who care deeply about our nation's future. Beyond his leadership in journalism, Rob is also a respected commentator and speaker. You've likely seen him on television or heard of him on the radio, offering sharp, thoughtful insights on the most pressing issues of our time. Please join me in welcoming a patriot who embodies the principles of journalistic excellence and enduring values of a free press. Rob Bluey.
Well, DJ, thank you for those kind remarks. How about a round of applause for Morton, Amaya, DJ, and Stephen? Stephen, great to see you again. We had the privilege of working together, and just an impressive list of things that you went through there. I can say that I personally benefited from the Leadership Institute shortly after coming to Washington as a reporter, so I am grateful for this organization and the invitation to speak before you this morning. I suspect that you have some questions about last night's election results, which maybe Morton and I can entertain during the Q&A, but I'm going to speak on a topic that I'm much more familiar with this morning. And as DJ indicated, that is the media, and particularly what I believe we are seeing in terms of a counter-revolution that's taking place in American journalism today. And so I'd like to begin by going through some of the quite remarkable changes that have occurred just in the past 9 to 10 months with President Trump in the White House. I sometimes think that we don't take stock of all of the things that happen because this news cycle is changing at such a rapid pace. We should take time to appreciate some of these developments. And I'd like to begin by talking about one of the things that Republicans have promised for years, if not decades more, since I came to Washington, and that is defunding these two organizations, PBS and NPR. And so for the first time, 60 years after the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was created, your tax dollars are no longer going to fund these organizations. So that, yeah, it does deserve a round of applause. Relatedly, this long-troubled government agency known as the U.S. Agency for Global Media, led valiantly by our friend Michael Pack during the first Trump administration, which was supposed to support freedom and democracy abroad, but instead too often undermined those American values that we hold dear, is just a shell of its former self and in the process of shutting down today. With these changes, the government is no longer in the business of funding media outlets that are anathema to the things that we hold dear, many of us in this room. Now, in the private sector, we're seeing these changes as well. Millions of conservatives were outraged when this man, Jimmy Kimmel, callously blamed MAGA for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Two of the biggest owners of ABC affiliates heard from you, people like you. Nexstar and Sinclair preempted his late-night show, which prompted NBC to suspend its late-night star. The fate was even worse for this man, Stephen Colbert, another late-night host who spews nothing but hatred for President Trump night after night. He will be without a job next year when CBS has decided to cancel his show and permanently end The Late Show for good. Now, CBS News' parent, Skydance, made several eye-catching promises in its bid to acquire Paramount earlier this year. And I just want to outline a few of them that were sent to FCC Chairman Brendan Carr in July. CBS said that it would undertake a comprehensive review of its programming to ensure that CBS reporting is fair, unbiased, and fact-based. It would recognize the importance of unbiased journalism. It would eliminate all of its DEI initiatives. It would commit to a diverse array of viewpoints. That would be an impressive change. It would feature viewpoints from across the political and ideological spectrum. And it would have an ombudsman for 2 years, and that job went to former Hudson Institute president Kenneth Weinstein. Now, it'll be up to all of us and all of you to make sure that these promises are fulfilled, but it's still a pretty remarkable admission for CBS and its new parent Skydance to put in writing. And I have some hope. There's a new editor-in-chief at CBS. You might have heard about her. President Trump talked about her in his 60 Minutes interview on Sunday night, his first time appearing on CBS, by the way, in 5 years. Barry Weiss is already shaking things up at CBS. You've seen many CBS employees, including John Dickerson, head for the exits, while others gnash their teeth at some of the changes that she is implementing. Quote, 2 people here. One said, "A throwing up emoji is not enough of a reflection of the feelings in here." This was coming from an incensed CBS News employee who wrote in a text message to The Guardian. And another added, "It's utterly depressing." Well, perhaps they should get in touch with reality and the fact that CBS has been losing its audience for the type of journalism that it's been promoting for many, many years, dating all the way back to Dan Rather. Now, the other new broadcast networks haven't fared much better and have made their own share of headlines as well. Lester Holt announced that he is stepping down. He's out at NBC Nightly News. Terry Moran went on a social media rant about Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, and then found himself fired by ABC News. Then Terry Moran went around and said that the network was failing the American people by not attacking President Trump more vigorously, if you can believe that or not. At MSNBC, Joy Reid, yes, lost her job and shed a few tears in the process. Rachel Maddow reacted to the news by railing against her own employer and then lost her staff to layoffs, coincidentally. MSNBC is now embarking on a rebrand, soon to be known, I believe next week, in fact, as MS Now. We'll see if anything really changes there. And it's not all just these negative headlines that we should celebrate, but Fox News continues to clobber its competition. Not only is it beating all of its cable news competitors, MSNBC and CNN, it is actually now on top of ABC, CBS, and NBC News, the broadcast competition, even though those channels are more widely available, as all of you know, to a much bigger audience than cable news networks. Quite impressive on the part of Fox. In the world of print journalism, Jeff Bezos said that the Washington Post, which he owns, the editorial page there would focus on personal liberties and free markets. He's actually hired some libertarians and conservatives, believe it or not, to run the editorial page. The previous editor, David Shipley, quit on the spot when he found out that Bezos was making this change, and the Post has lost over 75,000 subscribers over the course of the past few months. I would imagine that number is probably even higher than what's been reported. A few months after Bezos implemented some of these changes, Washington Post fact checker, the notorious Glenn Kessler, left the paper along with dozens of other longtime employees. The Associated Press was barred from the Oval Office and Air Force One over its politicized style book, which we've railed against for years at the Daily Signal, because of its refusal to call the Gulf of America by its proper name. The Pentagon implemented a new press policy, and every single legacy media outlet staged a walkout to protest. That gave us an opening at the Daily Signal to cover the Department of War for the first time. We are now credentialed not only at the Pentagon, but the White House and Congress as well. Thank you. Dennis knows the trouble that we went through in 2023. I'll get to that in just a moment. And that's not the only positive change that's benefiting conservative media. Google's YouTube TV signed a multi-year deal to carry OAN, One American News. Newsmax started trading on the New York Stock Exchange in March and has seen its ratings soar. Fox News acquired Red Seat Ventures, which represents popular conservative hosts like Megyn Kelly. And a few months later, Fox struck a licensing deal with the conservative podcasters behind The Ruthless Show, who you can now regularly see on Fox's TV programming, as well as other things that Fox is doing. And I could go on, but I'll end with this, because I think it's one of the most remarkable admissions on the part of some of these legacy news outlets, perhaps more than any of them all. ABC News paid $15 million to President Trump to settle a defamation case. CBS paid him $16 million to settle a lawsuit over Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview, and Meta forked over $25 million after censoring the president's social media accounts. Quite remarkable if you consider where these news organizations stood and their hostility toward President Trump in recent years. Now, of course, you're hearing cries of self-censorship, complaints of a fascist takeover, and comparisons to Kremlin suppression, as you can see here from Peter Baker and Susan Glasser. But the truth is simpler. They are losing power, and they just can't stand it anymore. You see, these past 9 months haven't just been remarkable, they've been quite revolutionary, and the collapse of the legacy media stranglehold on American journalism has left these gatekeepers in retreat. Gone are the days of an adversarial press that's dictating to us, the American people, the narrative that is happening in our country. And taking their place are a legion of new and emboldened media outlets, social media influencers, and all of you. Anyone in this room now has the power, as you see Elon Musk saying there, to be the media. All you need is a smartphone and an internet connection, and you can do remarkable things yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a massive disruption in our media landscape, and I think it's a beautiful thing to watch and a hopeful sign that after years of playing defense, that we are now on offense and, at least when it comes to the media, hopefully winning. Now, many of the changes happening today would be unthinkable to President Trump's return to the White House in January. I liken it to what my Daily Signal colleague, Victor Davis Hanson, describes as a counter-revolution, one in which President Trump is addressing the causes, not just the symptoms, of the progressive project. Dr. Hanson calls this counter-revolution an effort to erase the left's long march through institutions, something that Morton knows about and has witnessed, obviously, particularly in the case of higher education, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, this long march went through American newsrooms as well as academia and Hollywood and many of those institutions that we care deeply about. And today's legacy media is wholly owned and operated by the left. They stifle conservative viewpoints on a daily basis, if they even give us any airtime. Now, this march began long ago, and it's chronicled and detailed by Batya Ungar-Sargon in this book called Bad News. It might be hard for all of us to believe now, but newsrooms were at one point staffed by blue-collar workers who actually lived among the people that they covered in their communities. They focused on stories that were of interest to their neighbors, not the affluent and elite. But over the course of the 20th century, American journalism changed for the worse. It became an elite profession, one that catered primarily to liberals and advanced woke ideas. Reporters and editors might have in the past entered the workforce with a high school degree, perfectly appropriate, but they were replaced by esteemed journalists who came from elite Ivy League institutions. And as they rose through the ranks of newsrooms, they hired their friends and others just like them. And so those working class journalists were weeded out in favor of people who had degrees from Columbia Journalism School or Medill. Now, journalism schools at one time existed to teach students the trade, had simply become indoctrination factories for impressionable young minds. And I know this from my own experience as a journalism major in college. As a freshman, this is a true story, I stepped into my intro to journalism class, and the professor began that very first class by advocating for a far-left activist form of journalism, one that would only support left-wing causes and ideas. It was a familiar pattern throughout my 4 years in college. A course called Alternative Media focused on simply one type of alternative, those that were on the left, media like Mother Jones and The Nation, not National Review or anything that existed at the time on the right. So the message was clear to all of the students, at least in my program, journalism program, that if you think like one of us, you'll be rewarded with a successful career. Now, before there were media outlets like Campus Reform, I didn't have Campus Reform when I was in school, generation after generation of students viewed media only through this leftist lens. And today, unfortunately, many of those Gen Xers from my generation or millennials who followed me populate newsrooms across America. And some are even leading those media companies that despise President Trump and seek to undermine the traditional American values that we cherish. And yet, despite this, I stand here before you today with some good news, because conservatives have successfully challenged the status quo, and we are succeeding. Now, the numbers tell a devastating story about the legacy media's credibility crisis, and for good reason. Just think back to what we experienced over the course of 2023 and 2024. They consistently told us that there was nothing wrong in the White House and Joe Biden was perfectly fine. And then we saw with our own eyes and knew through viral videos and obviously his disastrous debate performance that there was something else going on. These are just a few of the numbers. Only 31% of Americans now trust the media a great deal or a fair amount. 36% have no trust at all. That's up from 6% in 1972. Among Republicans, a staggering 59% have zero trust in mass media. Legacy media have lost sight of informing Americans in favor of lecturing them. And as a result, the gatekeepers have lost their gate. They've lost touch with our country and, at times, reality. Now, for a time, this media monopoly, left-wing journalists occupied coveted spots in the White House, as you see here in the briefing room, the Pentagon, and on Capitol Hill. They were asking questions that advanced their agenda, often at the expense of the truth. President Trump tried to disrupt this in his first term. You might remember some of those things called Skype seats that Sean Spicer brought to the press briefing room. But this time, he's not backing down, and he's doing things more boldly than ever. And he's doing so with committed warriors like Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt and FCC Chairman Brendan Carr at his side. So how did this all happen? Well, I think we must give credit to our conservative forefathers. Without visionaries like William F. Buckley, or M. Stanton Evans at the National Journalism Center, or right here, Morton Blackwell at the Leadership Institute. Yes, please, Martin deserves a round of applause. We wouldn't be in a position to challenge the left the way that we are today. And without broadcasters like Rush Limbaugh starting his talk show in the 1980s, or Heritage Foundation President Ed Fulner helping to launch Town Hall in the 1990s, or countless bloggers that were charting new frontiers in the 2000s, we wouldn't be nearly as persuasive or influential as we are today. But it took a fighter like Donald Trump to really shake the establishment to its core. What Trump represents, and what we in conservative media represent, is this counter-revolution to restore normalcy and bring the country back from its far-left fringes. I think it's a return to common sense, which is a good thing for all of us. Now, I'd like to rewind to the 2024 presidential election for just a moment, because Trump set the tone that you're seeing now by skipping those traditional stops that most presidential candidates, including Republicans, felt that they had to make within legacy media organizations. Instead, he went on shows like this, spending time golfing with Bryson DeChambeau, hanging out with Andrew Schultz, Theo Vaughn, Logan Paul, and the guys from the All In podcast. Some of you may have never even heard of these folks, but they have built massive audiences online. And let's not forget the granddaddy of them all when he sat down for several hours with Joe Rogan, whose interview with Trump now has over 60 million views on YouTube alone. Trump did a total of 14 podcast interviews, racking up 124 million views by Election Day. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris did a grand total of 5 for a total of 4 million views. Is it any wonder why President Trump won so decisively in 2024? Now, unlike Harris, I mentioned how he bypassed many of these gatekeepers and spoke directly to the American people where they couldn't, as 60 Minutes did, splice his answer and cut out the parts that, in Harris's case, were indecipherable and confusing. Instead, the American people saw a different side of Trump because he spoke directly to them through platforms that wouldn't treat him as the legacy media often did. So as a result of this, we're living in a totally different world today. And it's a moment that I believe conservative media has been waiting for a long time, particularly somebody like me who's been working in conservative media for well over 20 years. Now, it's an entire ecosystem that we've built here in Washington, D.C. and across our great 50 states that's shaping the narrative increasingly and beyond. As last night's election results show, though, Morton, we have some work to do right here in Virginia. Now, in 2020, I served as a White House press pool reporter on a trip that the vice president took to Florida. The New York Times and other media outlets reacted with scorn at writing a hit piece and just can't even imagining the fact that somebody like me would be in such a position. They didn't take any issue with any of the things I reported, by the way, just the fact that somebody from a conservative organization might be in that spot. In fact, the White House Correspondents Association, the group that are all of the gatekeepers in the White House for journalists, even changed its membership rules to exclude the Daily Signal to prevent us from being in the press pool in the future. And then 3 years later, when Joe Biden was in the White House, they went a step further and they revoked the credentials of 442 reporters, including the Daily Signal. It was one of the most underreported stories, I believe, of 2023. Biden's decision worked out in our favor at the end of the day because, as you heard in the introduction, 10 years after our creation, the Daily Signal became its own independent media outlet last year with the goal of regaining access not just to the White House, but also to some other institutions in Washington. And today, I'm pleased to tell you that we are not only credentialed at the White House, but we also have 9 reporters credentialed in the U.S. Congress. And you can regularly find my colleagues, George Caldwell and Jacob Adams, roaming the halls to make sure that they're asking the questions that these other media outlets don't often do. And so in some ways, I view the Daily Signal as a disruptive force for good in a platform, in an institution like that, because no longer are Politico and Punchbowl dictating the narrative every day that Republicans oftentimes are portrayed in a negative light. You obviously have alternatives, not just from the Daily Signal, but other conservative media presenting a different perspective and point of view. Now, one of the most refreshing changes took place at the White House earlier this year when Caroline Leavitt upended the status quo by adding a new media seat. Here you see Sage Steele, I believe from February or March, sitting in that seat asking the first question at the White House press briefings, an honor that was previously given to people like Helen Thomas or the Associated Press. That's no longer the case today. And on any given day, you might see this woman here, my colleague Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent, serving as the new media reporter. She's done it quite often. In fact, Elizabeth joined the Daily Signal just about a year ago after graduating from Hillsdale College, where she served as editor-in-chief of the Hillsdale Collegian. She was one of our first journalism fellows, a new program that we established to give these young journalists an opportunity to do great work. Now, Elizabeth is one of 3 Hillsdale alumni who are currently serving as White House correspondents. You see Phil Wegman there in the middle and Reagan Reese as 2 of the others. Elizabeth was the White House pool reporter in February when the United Kingdom Prime Minister came to town, and she asked a question that made headlines around the world. She had asked about the UK's suppression of free speech, which J.D. Vance, the vice president, quickly condemned, and Elizabeth found herself in the center of quite the media firestorm when the president took the opportunity to rebuke the guest that he was hosting that day. Now, a few weeks later, Elizabeth found herself aboard Air Force One when she traveled with President Trump to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. She had a front row seat to ask him questions on a busy news weekend when the administration launched strikes on the Houthis and deported MS-13 gang members to El Salvador. You never know what's going to happen on a Saturday and Sunday in the Trump administration. She's accompanied Vice President J.D. Vance on Air Force Two, and she's asked questions at cabinet meetings. One of those cabinet members, War Secretary Pete Hegseth, last week brought a Daily Signal correspondent with him on his trip to the Indo-Pacific, the first time we've ever done anything like that, access that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. And so these opportunities are generating an enormous impact that our team can make, a small team, just 14 full-time employees at the Daily Signal. White House Wire, which is an official government website and email newsletter from the Trump administration, curates news stories on a daily basis. I believe it's on pause during the shutdown, however. And you can regularly see stories from Breitbart, the Washington Times, Daily Wire, Daily Caller, the Daily Signal, Washington Examiner, and Blaze Media, all of which score more links than the venerable New York Times, Associated Press, Bloomberg, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal. Now, this democratization of news means that Americans no longer have to depend on elites in Manhattan and Washington to set the agenda. And for us at the Daily Signal, it's an opportunity to expand our reach to Americans hungry for an alternative. In January, we added Victor Davis Hanson as a senior contributor. His daily 5-minute videos had recently topped 100 million views across our platforms. He has just done a remarkable job deciphering what's happening in the news on a daily basis and communicating it to a time-constrained audience like all of you quickly at the end of each day. We'd like to add others like Victor and supercharge our shows like Problematic Women, hosted by my colleagues Virginia Allen and Elise McHugh, to reach young conservative women who care about the issues that we do. This year, we also took a turn toward the states. And right here in Virginia, we hired our first ever state-based correspondent, Joe Thomas, to cover the elections and the things that were happening in the Commonwealth. We've added a reporter in Ohio and hope to soon have 2 more, one in Georgia and one in California, to cover the news that'll happening there in 2026. Now, over the course of the last 20 years, we have seen a marked decline in local newspapers, which is one of the reasons why we think this expansion into states is so critically important, and probably even more so with Governor-elect Spanberger going to be in the governor's mansion in Richmond come next year. Currently, there are about 50 million people who don't have a reliable source of local news. And so I think conservative media, including the Daily Signal, should try to fill that gap and serve those people, not just for the reporting we're doing here in Washington, D.C., but increasingly in state capitals. It's because today Americans don't get their news from traditional sources, like having a newspaper delivered to your driveway or turning on the evening news at 6:30 p.m. Instead, they are using their social media feeds where information flows rapidly and is unfiltered by those traditional gatekeepers. And as I said earlier, ordinary citizens like you, equipped with simply a smartphone, can have a remarkable impact to generate the stories that are worthy of making news. Now, it's incumbent upon all of us, all of you who support organizations like the Leadership Institute, to make investments for this to happen. And so in conclusion, I want to offer 3 practical steps that I think all of us can take as we walk out of here today. The first is to become a citizen journalist yourself. As I've talked about, you can do remarkable things simply on social media platforms or creating your own Substack or blog, whatever it might be, to document what's happening not only in your communities, but maybe your schools and your local government. You have the tools, we should put them to use. Second, support conservative media. Subscribe to our outlets, share our content, make small monthly donations. The left has funded a massive media infrastructure for decades, and we must now do the same. And then third, and perhaps most important, train the next generation. Support programs like those right here at the Leadership Institute and others that offer journalism internships and fellowships. We need to encourage young conservatives to pursue careers in media. We need a pipeline of talent if we're truly going to compete with those who have views that we disagree with. Now, our counter-revolution needs warriors. I know many of you in this room are up for the task. We have the tools. The moment is certainly right, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The question isn't whether or not this transformation will continue, it's whether we're going to seize this opportunity. So as one of my mentors, Ed Fulner, would often say, onward. Thank you all. Yes, this gentleman right here in the front. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much. And I completely enjoyed your talk, and I agree with everything you say. Obviously, however, we're missing the point somehow because there's been such a turn towards socialism amongst young people, even though for the first time ever we actually do have voices. What is your advice to the world in general as to what we need to do to reverse this god-awful trend?
I'm less than 24 hours after the election results. It'll be really interesting to delve into that exit poll data and some of the crosstabs and everything else. Obviously, there was encouraging signs from President Trump's victory that there were segments of young people that were more likely to support him. And I think that maybe we took a little bit too much for granted in that election. President Trump is a unique figure who's been able to obviously outperform other Republicans who've been on the ballot. But if you look at situations like New York City with Zohran Mamdani, it gives me great concern that primarily those under the age of 40 or 45 significantly fueled his election there. I think that he tapped into some issues that are clearly of concern to them, affordability, and I think as I saw a video that Vivek Ramaswamy posted running for governor in Ohio, and he said conservatives cannot ignore those same types of pocketbook issues. I mean, it's not just young liberals who can't afford homes or apartments. Young conservatives can't as well, and I think that that's probably going to be a deciding issue in the next election. And so that's one area that we can do probably a better job from a policy perspective of presenting alternative solutions. And then I think the other challenge will be, I mean, we experienced this in Virginia. There's an organization called Courier News, which has developed a series or a number of progressive left-leaning news outlets in states all across this country. And they've been doing this for a number of years. We're playing catch-up in many of these places. And so as people don't get their news from traditional sources, we can't let the left fill that vacuum. Conservatives need to provide an alternative. Otherwise, I'm afraid that those young people might only be hearing one side. Yes, in the back.
Hello, thank you so much for coming in today. I just had a question as a representative of some of these young people. How do we encourage more young conservatives to actually be a part of journalism, given that right now it's completely taken over by liberals? Some of my best friends have told me this is the most toxic environment to get involved with if you're a conservative. How do we change that narrative? How do we get more young people involved?
Well, I think that I'm very pointed in terms of the direction I think that they should go, because there are a number of opportunities. A lot of people want to be pundits and have a strong opinion, which I'm all in favor of. I think that you should obviously be able to do that. But I think where the real focus needs to be is probably on hard-hitting original reporting, investigative reporting, and doing the type of journalism that takes more time and effort than putting together a 700-word op-ed. And so I think you need both, but where I think that there's a deficiency in conservative media is on the former when it comes to that reporting. And so I'm encouraged. I made my first trip to Hillsdale College in September, and I'm grateful to see people like John Miller, who's leading the journalism program there, have significant interest in conservatives. And I know they're not alone. I know Liberty and other colleges where the Campus Reform has a presence, or the Leadership Institute is working with students. And so part of the challenge is when somebody goes into a journalism program to make sure that they are not just exposed to a left-wing ideology, as I was. I was very fortunate to have a student newspaper advisor who mentored me and provided an alternative perspective. If I didn't have that, who knows what direction I may have taken. And I'll end with one note of encouragement. I received a call last week from a professor at Syracuse University. I'm from upstate New York. And the professor said she was putting together a panel because her students were intrigued by conservative media and the rise of conservative media and all the things that I spoke about today. And she said, well, we just don't have people on campus who can really speak to that. Big surprise, right? And so she said, I'm putting together a panel for Monday. So I'll be traveling to Syracuse University on Monday, and I'll be speaking on a panel with the CEO of the New York Post, and we're going to talk to the students there. So I think getting conservatives onto college campuses and actually talking about the opportunities that exist in conservative media hopefully will inspire them to pursue those careers. Yes, right here.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, DJ, also for your contribution here. Rob, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and we've seen the meteoric rise of Turning Point, it's exploded. From your viewpoint and DJ's viewpoint, how do you think are they managing? Are they going to be able to manage the sustainment of that effort? And what can we all do to continue to help them to be able to do that? It's a very large force out there, which I think we would be able to take advantage of.
Well, I'll quote Ed Follner again, who believed that addition and multiplication were the key to successful politics, not subtraction and division. And so I certainly hope that we are able to do what we can to provide support for them. I know that groups like Heritage Action have reached out and are very interested in working with them in terms of the grassroots mobilization and the ground game efforts that they have planned for 2026 and beyond. So I think that probably harnessing, we've heard about the massive interest, right, that people have had after the assassination of Charlie. And yes, it takes an ability to successfully scale to the level for them and for us to be successful as conservatives. And so I would continue to support organizations that are working collaboratively with them, encourage students to engage with those groups that are on college campuses, whether they're affiliated with TPUSA or the Leadership Institute or other youth organizations. It's really important that we give them an opportunity to see that there are institutions there to support them. And as hostile of an environment it can be on college campuses, they should know that they can turn to leaders like Morton and others for help. Thank you for the question. One more, DJ? Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question more about the new restrictions that the Pentagon has put on journalists regarding what they can report, specific to, classified information or sources that they may receive that they just can't report on. My concern is mainly like if we get somebody in office that doesn't necessarily align with our views, do you not believe that these new restrictions can be taken advantage of by the left?
Oh, I certainly worry about that. I mean, we experienced firsthand with the Biden White House the change that they made to their credentialing policy that they then used to revoke our credentials. And so I'm under no illusions that a different administration could be hostile to conservative media. I will say this, that we had a vigorous internal debate at the Daily Signal about the new policy. And we talked to the individuals who crafted it. We talked to national security experts. We talked to people who've worked at the Pentagon. I mean, it was not a decision that we came to instantly. It actually took a lot of debate and deliberation on our part. And I can report that after that trip that the correspondent took last week to the Indo-Pacific, we did not feel that there were any onerous restrictions placed on the Daily Signal. And so I think if there is a situation where we're concerned about it, you would hear us speak out for sure. I mean, that's our commitment to a free press. At the same time, I do think, to your point about a future administration, I do think that this is one of the things, on the one hand, where it's going to be difficult for whoever it is to go back, because President Trump is, I mean, he's one of the most transparent presidents we've had. He's constantly talking to the news media. And so whoever succeeds him will be hopefully held to some of those same standards. And the people that have been invited to cover these institutions hopefully won't be given the boot if there is a change in administration. So I think keep a watchful eye on it, DJ. I appreciate your question. Morton, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Hold on just a second, please. Rob, I appreciate very much your coming by. I noticed that you are today wearing an Adam Smith tie. It's our custom to give our speakers Adam Smith ties or scarves, and I don't know what the pattern is of this particular tie. If it's the same, if it's the same as what you have, we'll switch that with another tie.
Well, I've got 2 teenage boys, so they can also.
Okay, well that's great. We had a couple of weeks ago, a Leadership Institute graduate sent us a copy from his wedding, and he had 6 groomsmen, and they were all wearing the same Adam Smith tie, which was fun. Appreciate you coming today. I encourage that you come back. Wednesday Wake Up Club breakfast, easy to schedule. It's the first Wednesday of every month. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the donors who make possible what we're doing here. And let's pray for the country. Thank you.